first, I have obtained exclusive new poll results that show exactly why it was that Wisconsin's Supreme Court candidate Brad Schimmel lost his bid for the court. It is a brand new poll from the Institute for Reforming Government, or IRG, along with Neapolitan News Service and Scott Rasmussen. The focus is in the aftermath of the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, the issues that contributed to Schimmel's defeat. As I have said, I believe that the primary reason is simple demographics. While Democrats continue to add voters in Dane County, the rest of the state, especially the WOW counties, continue to hemorrhage voters in pure numbers because they're reaching retirement age, and the old Scott Walker coalition has moved down to and become residents of Florida or possibly Texas or Arizona. We'll get to that in just a second. What you are about to hear is an exclusive poll release from the Institute for Reforming Government, as well as the Neapolitan News Service, with pollster Scott Rasmussen and his Rasmussen Research. Now, you might have heard me talking about one of the polls, a couple of the polls actually, during the Supreme Court race, and people were taking issue with Rasmussen. Well, it turns out he was the second most accurate pollster in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, also one of the most accurate pollsters here in Wisconsin during the 2024 presidential election. Some of the key findings from this poll were on the issues. I have always had an issue with Supreme Court races or any appellate court race being about crime. Who's tougher on crime? These judges aren't sentencing criminals to prison. That's not the role of an appellate judge. 88% of respondents, and it should be noted that this poll was in the field over the past 6 days, so with some time after the April 1st election to sort of reflect on it, 800 registered voters, so it's not a huge sample size, but for a race like this, you have to understand getting people to know enough about a race to complete a poll like this is very, very difficult, which is why you get such smaller sample sizes. And when I say it's much more difficult to poll a race like this is what I mean, because just people don't know what's going on in a Supreme Court race. 88% of all voters said crime was an important issue, but only 3% of voters thought it was the most important issue Schimmel was not chosen, that he was weak on crime. 5% of voters thought Crawford being tough on crime was the most important issue on why voters chose her. 52% of all voters, 59% of independents said claims Schimmel was weak on crime had no impact on their vote whatsoever. Among all voters, here were the issues that were very important. Number one, abortion. 60% said it was very important to their vote. This includes 47% of independents. Women, that number, as you would expect, even higher, 65%. Sharing my values came in at second, 51%. Being tough on crime at 50%. And voter ID requirements at 47%. Abortion continues to dominate judicial races. This, ladies and gentlemen, is why, although every liberal in the state of Wisconsin says it is so important that women be given back their right to health care. Notice they don't even say right to choose anymore. It's just about women's health care, as though the sum total of a human being's health can be determined by whether or not they have an abortion. This continues to be the reason that the Supreme Court has dragged its feet for nearly 3 years on this issue. Don't you think it's a little weird? And I am addressing this to all Democrats, to all committed liberals in this state who are listening to me right now or watching on the Dano Cam. Don't you think it's odd that at the same time, Democrats are saying it is unconscionable that we are governed by an 1849 law and that women no longer have health care in this state? But yet the Supreme Court didn't even hear oral arguments in a challenge to said 1849 law until after the presidential election. This is rather obviously by design. They could have, the second that Janet Protasewicz was elevated to the court in August of 2023, taken up an abortion challenge, and they could have fast-tracked it. They could have taken a direct appeal because this is so important, because so many women are just being denied health care. They need to take this up immediately. They didn't. They wanted to wait until after the 2024 and 2025 election cycles. 82% of voters thought abortion was an important issue. 70% of independents said abortion was an important issue. 47% of independents identified that Schimmel potentially ruling to prevent abortion as influencing their vote. 30% say that Susan Crawford's support for abortion rights was the most important issue leading her election. In a spring race where you had 635,000 Trump voters who didn't show up, the election became a referendum, much more so than the abortion issue. Quite frankly, the polling on abortion is not totally complete because it so thoroughly dominates the left. Now, what you did have in this poll was a huge swath of Susan Crawford voters. Even independents said that they were more likely to vote for Susan Crawford. No real surprise since she won by about 11%. But one of the biggest things, and what if you go a little bit deeper into the poll you'll find, is that disapproval of Trump and Musk motivated all of those Kamala Harris voters to get out there and to vote in a way that Trump voters just didn't. Anger, as I always say, is a great motivator. Fear is the number one motivator. Number two is anger, is rage. These people are setting fire to cyber trucks, for goodness sakes. They're clearly enraged about Elon Musk. 59% say they disapprove of Elon Musk. 64% of independents say the same thing. Now, if you go into the crosstabs on this poll, you'll find that it wasn't so much the abortion issue as it was stopping President Trump, stopping Elon Musk, and the widespread belief through those ads. Remember, we made fun of them, the please, please, please ad, Brad Schimmel begging for donor money, the insinuation that he was somehow corrupt. Ironic, of course, because we have concrete proof that Susan Crawford is absolutely going to rule in favor of Democrats in a redistricting challenge, assuming one does get to the Supreme Court. After the spring election, it's entirely possible they don't even take it up because of the possibility of getting slapped down by the U.S. Supreme Court and the widespread belief that they're not going to even need Wisconsin for Democrats to take over the House in 2026, as there potentially is a tsunami coming, a blue wave, just in terms of the natural ebb and flow of politics. That rage over Donald Trump winning the 2024 election is going to continue in 2026. What were the biggest reasons? What were the biggest reasons in terms of advertising that you thought Brad Schimmel was going to hurt? Let's see. Do I have this? Oh, here we go. A lot. It was a lot or a little. The following issues. Ads in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race made several claims against Brad Schimmel. How much did each of the following influence your vote? He would rule to prevent abortion as a choice, 48%, a lot. A little, 15%. He failed to process rape kits, a lot, 38%. He was bought off with campaign contributions, 38% as well. He was weak on criminals, just 19%. So you see the abortion thing, which clearly is motivating the left. I mean, this is just an issue that's not going to go away. But the issue that most likely resonated the most with independents was abortion combined with the Elon Musk factor. Now, Elon Musk dumped a lot of money into this race, but he became a lightning rod. And it was very smart of Democrats to tie Brad Schimmel to him because liberals were so enraged about Elon Musk and Doge that, as I said, they're burning Tesla dealerships and keying Model X's wherever they can find them. Here's where I get to say, I told you so a little bit. What was the issue that I said was by far the most important in this race? The fact that Susan Crawford was rather obviously corrupt and that Democrats were going to use her in order to redistrict Wisconsin, stealing 2 congressional seats and potentially with them control of the United States House of Representatives. 58% of those who watched TV ads in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race made several claims against Susan Crawford. How much did each of the following influence your vote? She would stop President Trump's agenda. A lot. 58%. She would help Democrats gain advantages in Congress through redistricting. 52%. She would overturn union reforms known as Act 10, 36%. She was weak on criminals, 22%. The biggest issue, again, was nationalizing this election. The reality is, abortion is not going to be an issue for much longer. The Supreme Court can no longer delay. And if they rule anything except women have an absolute unfettered right to abortions in this state, and I'm telling you, folks, I want you to, Paul, I said this yesterday, April 15th, but I want you to mark the tape right now. The decision is going to come very likely in June. It is going to be authored by Ann Walsh Bradley. And it is going to declare that abortion is an absolute right granted by the Wisconsin Constitution. They are going to allow her to write the opinion so that she can be the hero that restored abortion rights for women in Wisconsin. This is what the plan is. It's going to cease being an issue, in other words, in this state very, very quickly. What's not is the nationalization of statewide elections that Democrats have just done a whole lot better than Republicans. We are going to try to take the White House press briefing as it happens. It's scheduled for 3:30. We're not quite sure. I do want to take some phone calls and reaction to this exclusive poll release here on the Dan O'Donnell Show. 414-799-1130 on the adventknows.com talk and text line. You can also reach me toll free. 1-800-838-9476. Email me directly, DOD@iHeartMedia.com. Facebook, X @Dan O'Donnell Show. You know where to find me. Right now, though, an exclusive poll release, the Institute for Reforming Government, Neapolitan News, joining up on a poll by Scott Rasmussen of Rasmussen Reports. He sold that organization. He now has a new polling firm called RMG Research. They did polling of the most important issues in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, as well as the ads that were most effective. Here's another interesting tidbit from this poll that was just released today. We have the exclusive on this. Would you believe that Governor Evers has a net favorability rating of +8? 52% approve of the job he's doing, 44% disapprove. President Trump, 47% approve, 53% disapprove. You want to know why every radio ad you heard for Susan Crawford and against Brad Schimmel featured Elon Musk? It's because of this. He has a 38% approval rating in this state, 59% disapprove.